Andrew, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Yeah,
hi there. Welcome to this second Gameye session. My name's Andrew Walker. I'm the head of business development for Gameye. I'm joined by some amazing people that have very kindly put aside some time to share their experiences for multiplayer game development, but also development in general, how we see things progressing during this very unusual time, the types of trends that they observe, how to make your way through this period, and maybe try and help plan for the future. We've got 5 people on the panel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I think at this point I would rather like to just I'll direct traffic, but I'll just pass it over to Ollie for an introduction.
Hi, my name is Ollie. I work in games industry since I can remember. I think I released my first game in 1999. Always have been either browser or mobile. Always have been mobile multiplayer games. Biggest studios I work for, Good Game Studios, Zynga, Plarium, and now independent, help smaller studios with production, help smaller studios to set up their strategy about product, but also how they make the product actually happen in terms of production. Living in London, that's me. Silent.
I thought I dropped out. Sorry. Pass it over to Ralph.
Sure. Hey, I'm Ralph. I'm in the game industry for about 10 years. Before starting the Gameye journey, I founded 2 companies in the voice and web hosting industry, and now responsible at Gameye for our product and infrastructure strategy.
Great. Steve?
Hey, I'm Steve Iles. I've been in the games industry for around 25 years, worked on probably over 40 products across most of the formats. Currently working on the anti-gravity racing game Pacer, which we're working on in collaboration with Gameye, who are doing the multiplayer hosted services for us. Also run a games development fund with Simvan Capital.
Fantastic. Yeah, thanks, Steve. Walid?
Hello, everybody. So I'm Walid. I'm the founder of Uran, Matisse-based video game studio. Today we are focusing on Warshmallows, which is the multiplayer game. And we want it actually to be the game that is super accessible for the inner circles, but at the same time, where players want to invest their time and go somehow competitive on it, they can. So, yeah. And we are in closed beta, so you can come and test it if you want.
Oh yeah, we have been, and we enjoy our games, that's for sure, from Steve and yourself, and of course, Ferran, you're next.
Yeah, thank you. Can you listen to me properly?
Oh yes.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So, like my colleagues, I'm in the industry for 20 years because I started in 2000. I started with esports in Spain. At those days, it was like something very new because only in South Korea and maybe Germany, esports were something relevant. But then I moved to the game production, and I have been 12 years producing games. First in a company that it was called Carrot Games for mobile, most of the games. Then I started my own company 4 years ago to make PC games, and now just 2 years ago, 1 year and a half, we started the Bridge Studios with a crowd of people coming from big companies, but maybe with the hopes to make something new and fresh. And we are making a multiplayer game, and we are in very close relationship with Gameye people. So we are also in beta, maybe in 2 weeks. So I will send you my email just because if you want to test the game. Okay.
Yeah, fantastic. And for everybody that's got a game that may be going into beta right now, you know, on the panel, feel free to post links in the chat. I know that there'll be some keen people to try it out. You might get some more feedback and maybe some ideas. I don't know. So, I mean, we've had a lot of discussion already about investing. It's great to have Steve on the panel because he's got that a foot in that camp as well. But how do you? So, I wanted to talk to you guys as developers, as product executives, because you're the guys that are actually building these things and doing the hard work to take them to market. And how do you see the investment market and the publishing market right now? What are your observations that might help other developers, other game developers who are watching this right now, kind of make their way towards success? So start with Ollie. Do you want to kick that off?
If it comes to investment in publishing, I only can speak about the mobile games market.
That's great.
That's where I live. Publishing in mobile games has been really tricky and not really super successful. I mean, it's simple. As a revenue share, profitability is already very difficult to reach, and as soon as you have to share the small profits even more, it gets tricky. The publishers ask for a lot without participating in the cost. It demotivates the developers, and the developers who join publishing are either the developers who don't have other options or they don't know better. So I'm not convinced that mobile games publishing, how it works these days, has a future. There has been other approaches. If I have a look at Scopely, who's publishing their own games, they own the IP, and they give revenue share to a studio, which they most likely acquire at some point. This has worked for them very well, but the classical publishing we know from the box title industry has, so far out of my perspective, not worked in mobile. Investment, yeah. I think you have to differ between a growth investment or early stage. Early stage has been always difficult and is even more difficult at the moment, since the competition with companies who seek money for growth is insane. So if you get 100 pitches, 80 pitches are for growth, 20 are for early stage, which is much more risky. So why would you go for that instead of putting your money into growth, where you get the same cut most likely and have way less risk? I think what I see many decks, since I'm advised a couple of VCs in games. I think perception of what is a good game has become more a sales pitch than actually a pitch about the quality of a product. So it's more important to sell something an investor like than actually something which you think can work. I've seen pitches where I, as a game developer, know there's zero chance that this will work. The numbers are actually not good, and you can make simple calculations that is not working, but investors are excited, they get the money, and you see others which have fantastic numbers, but they're nerds. They sit in the basement, they don't have a fancy slides, they don't get the money. So yeah, I'm curious how that will develop.
Yeah, it's interesting. Steve, again, you're sort of maybe one foot in both camp. I don't know if you've looking at a lot of pitches right now as an investor, but where do you see this going?
I think right here, right now, it's difficult. Quite a few investors have almost shut their doors because of the uncertainty of COVID, and I think that the industry, maybe as a large, has to be very careful that they're not lulling themselves into a false sense of security, seeing the massive spike or increase in sales that we've seen during COVID with the lock-in, because we're just about to go into a major recession. I think we can all say that. And it's interesting that on gamesindustry.biz, I saw an article, which is something we've been talking about for over a month. An article suddenly popped up a couple of days ago, basically verifying our feelings that this increase in sales is going to completely flatten out, and then it'll go back to potentially what the market saw before COVID, but maybe be even worse to what we'd seen, because as the countries start to open up again and people do start to go out, there will be more competition for out of home entertainment, and on top of that, you've also got a load of people that have a reduced income or have even lost their jobs, and they can no longer afford to spend the amount of money on gaming that they were spending. So if they were buying maybe 2 or 3 products a month, they will only be able to buy 1 product a month or 1 product every couple of months. So I think we've got a lot of challenges ahead of us. but the market won't go away. We've just got to figure out how we're going to get through this whole process. And the problem is we don't know what's ahead of us yet.
Yeah. So Ollie, do you wanted to jump in for a sec?
Yeah, I just want to say I completely agree with Steve. I think the peak games have right now is only that people spend the money now. They are now, which they would have spent otherwise in a few months' time. Only because they purchase now more games doesn't mean they have more money over the year. So I think it will completely flatten out, particularly in box titles because they're more expensive. The $2-3 here and there for a mobile game, it's a little different how you make this decision. But I even think that on box titles, the sales will fall a little bit. That we are in the market, it won't die. But like I said, people will have less money. There will be a recession. There will be a reconsideration what is important. And after 3 months in the house, I'm pretty sure a lot of people won't touch their PlayStation for a very long time. I mean, but yeah, I think I do understand why. I mean, we have been in the same situation for a project that the investor said like 2 days before the signature was planned to do. Oh, sorry, we want to wait this out. We decided with our board that we don't make an investment for 6 months in this category. Which I think is absolutely very valid because even if VCs say, yeah, we're really keen to invest, VCs have their partners where the money is coming from. And if these people potentially lost money somewhere else, they are the people who put on the brakes. So I completely agree with Steve. It will be very tricky to get investment in the next, I think until end of the year, until it's clear, okay, we get out of this and there will be another peak.
Yeah, I mean, we're still looking at making investments, but we had put the brakes on since COVID had really started taking hold. So we're looking at making investments again, I think, from the end of this month.
Okay, so I want to just let Ferran come in at this point. I know you're going through like a particular phase of for the breach, but how do you see what are the challenges operationally and business-wise for you as a developer, building this big multiplayer game and trying to take it to market, trying to get the backers?
Yeah, it's as you said, it's a big challenge. We have been in this kind of position in the past, and something that we have learned is that maybe the best strategy, maybe, is to have a small team, but very talented one. So that was the decision we take 1.5 years ago. We signed it only 15 people, and we are facing a project that we know that if it goes ahead, we will need to sign maybe the double or the triple of people. But we did it. Now we have a playable demo that you can feel the sense of the game, and you can try to figure out the opportunity, the mechanics, because we are mixing, shooter with MOBA. That for us is something relatively new and fresh. The mobility is amazing in the game. So, yeah, we try to do that in this way, just because at the beginning, with our own resources, it means $500,000 from the founders. We are 6 founders, all of us working in the company. With $500,000, it's a very little amount to make it. But yeah, now we have been trying to do things with TDD. So all the systems we are developing will be solid enough to the next step, so we don't have to throw nothing to the rubbish. So we can use these entity component systems, all the modules for the next step of the company. And the situation about the COVID, of course, now we are just in the moment when we need to find this partner, this publisher, this investor to go to the next step. And we are really in contact with more or less 20 companies, and two of them told us about this COVID problem. The others, they didn't talk us about the COVID problem, and we are like moving forward with them. But never know. As Steve says, for sure it will affect.
Yeah, Walid, and how are you seeing it?
Well, actually, we are a little bit in the same case as Ferran. So we decided to build Warshmallows with a very small team. We started even with 3 people. Then we doubled every 6 months. We doubled. Now we are 12, 15, and very, very low budget. We spent the last 2 years actually going, in a very agile mode, bringing from prototype to testable version very, very quick. Like in few months, we went to events. We've been building the game with the people also. So we throw the game online. We onboarded people to play the game with us. And hopefully lately we added also the online multiplayer, which is because at the beginning, Warshmallows was supposed to be only local shared screen. And then people started asking for having it online. So we moved to that. Of course, we are using a third-party technology. We are not developing our own technology. This is also helping us to control the costs and to have a control over the whole production phase. Which is interesting with the COVID. Actually, we still see it as an opportunity for us, even if we were definitely in the phase of pre-launching the game and almost signing investors and publishers, but all this is delaying everything. So we are surfing the wave, as it's coming. I think like everyone here around, we definitely understand the point of view of the VCs and publishers. I mean, it's nobody have this crystal ball where you can see what will happen in the future. We felt that there will be a spike in April, perhaps in May, but definitely there will be some kind of recession that is coming. This is why we also think it's an opportunity, because it's also time perhaps to imagine some kind of new business model. And this is what video games and online gaming brought every day, like the battle passes, like the freemium model. All this thing came in a way to help the developers go through recession or go through any phase of this economy of video games or whatever you can call it, or electronic entertainment. And perhaps it's time to come out with a new business model.
So has anyone got an idea on which business model is going to be the dominant one after? Are we going to see? Is everyone going to be on a subscription? Are we going to be looking at more free-to-play games? We have the last big financial shock kind of pushed that business model into the West. I want to bring Ralph in later for this too, but Ollie, go ahead.
So I think if we have seen the impact, the success, I mean, however you define it, of Apex or Warzone shows the power of free to play. You get in a very short time millions of players, which only will happen with free to play. Games become more expensive. If you pay £70 for a game, you don't start a new one every other day, every other month. So you stick with the game for a long time. I do believe that free to play will have more future in the core, like in the box title industry, also because game development got cheaper, tools got better. What you can do now with the Unity or Unreal Engine with a small team is incredible. You couldn't do that 10, 15 years ago. So I do believe that free to play will come in much more heavy in the core industry and will change a lot. If it will be a subscription-based model, or it will be a DLC-based model, or maybe there will be good ways to have IP or in-game purchases on a more dynamic base, like how Destiny is trying it in a combination. This will need to be shown by time. But I do think free to play will take a bigger cut in the next couple of years.
So Ralph, I mean, we've I work with you, your colleague. We've seen also a lot of things happening with our partners with COVID, with the shock that creates. Where do you see it headed? I mean, how can Gameye support that?
Well, I know about COVID, the impact that it has on us, at least from the operational side. Luckily, isn't that big. From the start, Gameye was already pretty much virtual. We actually took it as an opportunity and shut down our last offices in Rotterdam to make the company completely virtual. We're now basically all scattered over Europe. of course, in my role, I also have to keep an eye on our suppliers, and with China being on lockdown, it's harder for the data centers and the hyperscalers to get new servers and equipment in. And of course, what we saw at the beginning of COVID, with people moving massively to tools like Microsoft Teams and Zoom, that had quite a big impact on some of the cloud providers. For example, the Teams, of course, saw a huge spike with all the enterprises, the universities moving towards that. And actually, at some point during a weekend, I think a month ago, most of Azure's compute power, like the servers you can spin up in the cloud, was actually depleted in west of Europe. So nobody for like say like 12 hours, they simply couldn't spin up any more servers.
Yeah. So I just saw a question, and it's a good timing for this question, because I think, part of what's troubling us all, and I think it has always been a case, and we just talk about it in games industry a lot, is discovery and how to sort of break through in the marketplace. I mean, we've got everybody at home right now, but there's still these issues around, how do you reach your audience? And in particular, what Hussam has raised is user acquisition, which obviously I think is very different on mobile. So I'd love to hear what Ollie has to say about that than it is for, say, PC and console. But so Ollie, lead us off. I mean, it's reaching the audience, user acquisition. How, that's a major challenge to get players into the funnel for multiplayer games, to kind of create the community around it, so they will come back. So
I mean, it always depends on a few factors. You can be lucky and get like some love from Google and Apple. And I know multiplayer games, they get 10 million installs a month completely organically because the Google algorithm loves them. I know games which get one install, even if they are basically the same game. User acquisition, if you have a game which doesn't give a reason for like lots of viral users, CPIs are insanely expensive. It gets more expensive on scale. Yeah, you need money. There is no way out. If you don't have money for user acquisition, you won't be able to compete. You won't be able to scale in terms of revenues fast. If you have a game which has an incredible long lifetime, you can wait it out. So you grow slow your user base until the user base creates enough revenue, then reinvest this into user acquisition and grow slowly. But if you want to grow quick, and if you want to like have a success story like Small Giants had, they invested a hell amount of money in user acquisition to come to that point that quick. And this will be on mobile stay like that. At certain point, you need a lot of budget. There are games which work more over quantity than quality than quantity. They will need a lower volume of players to make the same revenues, but it's the same. You need initially budget. At least over the masks in average. There are always exceptions, like there are always games which get, either they're just awesome games and people talk about it, they get very, very quick, very high install numbers without doing anything for it. Yeah. Besides building an incredible game, but not doing anything for user acquisition.
Cool. So let's pass it to Steve. So Steve, I mean, user acquisition or just marketing or influencer marketing, how are you going to reach your audience? What advice would you give to some of the folks in the audience about, identifying and reaching their audience?
Oh, well, we're going through that now and have been going through it for quite some time. And it's not an easy job, as, Olivier says. We've been looking at, traditional PR. We've been looking at, marketing spend. We've been looking at influencers, streamers, etc. And what I would say from the last year of touring with the game is that our takeaway was traditional PR is at the bottom of the ladder. It plays a part, but it is the last thing that you should be worrying about. First and foremost is absolutely working with the streamers, working with the influencers, building your community, because that's where you're really going to get the majority of the payback. And then PR will basically then plug into that process at the bottom, as well as and anything that if you've got budget to be able to do some really good PR, which we were looking at doing something in central London. I forget exactly what the place was called, but winching a bunch of influencers up 100 feet in the air to play Pacer, which we're not doing in the current COVID. Now, that's great because you have them all playing live. You get a hell of a lot of views on that. But that's completely off the table. So now we're looking basically at everything else.
Yeah, my vertigo wouldn't allow me to do that. That's
yeah. But it is absolutely tough. But I mean, if you look at games like Human Fall Flat was a great example of a developer that he had no budget, and it took him about a year. From creating the game to going out to the small influencers, who still have a viewer base. They were getting the game out there, and then the bigger influencers picked it up, and then it exploded for him. But that was a year's worth of work for him. But it can work that way.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Thanks, Steve. So, I mean, I want to come to Walid next. You're a little maybe earlier in development than Steve. You can correct me if I'm wrong. What are the sort of tactics that you favor, or what are your observations?
I definitely agree. I mean, even if you have the budget for the user acquisition, this can game in a second stage, because we already tried things actually to create a kind of content. I mean, creating the game is awesome, but we also need a marketing campaign that goes with it. And if you don't have a budget like us, I give you an example. 2016, we launched that game called Bagra, and the game is actually about stealing the cows from other place. So you have 100 cow, and you go steal the cows from the other place with your flying UFO. A game, just a click and just click on the mobile. What made it actually being a relevant content to share over all the communities that we know and more is actually we promised the player that every Wednesday, the winner, the one with the biggest amount of cows, actually would win a real living cow. And we've been streaming the cow, and we brought the cow in our backyard in the office. So we've been breeding cow for over 2 months, and this created this kind of genuine content. It's buzzy stuff, okay, but it brought people to get interest over the game, and one cow is less than $1,000, and one cow is actually brought us between 200 to 300,000 users. So, which is, I think, very low CPI. $1,000 for 300,000 users is very low.
So it's a good exchange rate, isn't it?
It's nice. Also for Warshmallows, or all the games that we wanted to bring is actually to create this, this story that people will like to talk about, and to stand out from all the other big players who have a lot of money actually to communicate and to completely draw the networks with their content, etc. But we can support this later by reinvesting the incomes on the user acquisition, etc. So it should be like some kind of strategy over a year or 18 months, especially when it's a multiplayer game that takes time for people to play and to onboard, etc. And at that time, you can reach some kind of point where the game will be sufficient to himself. So so it would be nice to do like this.
Cool. So Ferran, I think coming to you, that you told me some interesting stories about how you've used professional players and esports players to test your game, but also maybe to raise the profile with those influencers and streamers. Do you want to share that with the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that something that we need if we have a multiplayer game is to try to be sure that when you are going to the early access for the game in Steam, for example, you should have, I don't know, maybe 500,000 users to make it happen, and to make the CCU, the concurrent users, to make everything work. So we have to be very active before the early access. So if we don't have budget, we have to be growth hackers. And for example, what we are doing is we have been involving not only pro gamers, but all kind of gamers. We have 200 people in our Discord platform. It's not too much, 200, but they are really active, telling us what they love and what they hate from shooters and from hero shooters and from all these kind of games. And we are trying to make almost everything they are telling to us, and involving these pro gamers that for us they are ambassadors, is some kind of how to say, is a mix of trying to find the correct people that maybe are not only moved by money, and at the perfect point. For example, we have one guy that it's called Win Heaven. He's now an amazing Twitcher with more than 100,000 subscribers in Twitch. But when we met him 1 year and a half ago, he was nobody, just a guy making some YouTube videos, but very funny. And we try to discover these kind of guys. We didn't reach 10 Win Heavens because we have only 2 of them that they have grown a lot, but they are involved from the very beginning. So they feel the game like their game. So we are trying to make this ambassadors strategy. We need to have 20 of them all around the world, not only in Europe, but Asia, America, these kind of things. And then from that point, you have to think about when they play, they used to play with maybe 2 or 3 or 4 more streamers, and you have to push them to invite these new streamers to get into your project. So this is one of the strategies. Then, of course, you have to count about a lot of things, not only this ambassador strategy, but all the growth hacking strategies you can put on the table. Just 2 more little things, like Olliver said before. For example, I have one case study. We launched a game in 2013, and we invested. It was a mobile game. We invested only 100,000 in user acquisition. That if you compare it with all the other players, it was like nothing, 100,000, and we reached 40 million users. But it was because, like Olliver said, Google and Apple love our game. They started to make featuring. It was like crazy. Every day, organically, thousands and thousands of people, and it was like a party. So perfect. During 3 years, it was a big party. We made a lot of money, but if you think about all the marketing strategy, it was like nothing worked, only this first push, and then the snowball. So, of course, you have to be very good in the live ops side. You have to give the people what they want and try to revert 1 star to 5 stars every time. You cannot let the people putting you 1 star and don't answer them. Okay, this is very important. And lastly, I want to ask a question. Somebody knows the CPI for PC gamers?
Ooh, that's a good question.
It will help a lot to make
if anyone from Gameforge is in the audience, that would be good.
Guys, I want to jump in. Sorry, Ferran, I didn't want to interrupt you. I love your enthusiasm. It's great. And I think the session is great. We're already a couple of minutes over. We got a lot of questions in the chat, but I think we can't answer them at this moment because the guys for the next session need to prepare as well, and people need to jump over.
I just want to, yes. Sorry, Jürgen. I just want to thank everyone for being here and thank the panelists. We had a lot of diversity of advice, of opinions, and but I hope the audience found it actionable. I hope they found it. I try to bring in as many of you as I can. We'll be in our Discord. Somebody can paste the link there if you want to ask more questions, especially to me and Ralph. But also, I would also encourage, if you have questions to Ferran, Walid, Steve, or Ollie, please reach out to them on LinkedIn. They're all working on great projects. They're not all Gameye partners. We just want to make this content as useful for developers as possible, and we hope to do this again sometime. So thank you all for your great questions. Thanks all the panelists, and we'll see you in the next session.
Thanks
Yes.
for having me.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good.
Cheers.
Thanks, Andrew.